All right, we're going to read Chapter 4, Islamic Culture. Islamic civilization thrives. For 100 years or so, Islam spread mostly through conquest. Then, when the new rulers took control of the empire, they moved the center of the government from Damascus to Baghdad in what is now Iraq. Baghdad became the center of a great empire. The new rulers did not conquer as much new land. Instead, they strengthened their empire through trade, agriculture, and learning. Traders across the empire exchanging goods from India, Arabia, North Africa, and the Ottoman Empire. Traders also exchanged ideas, customs, and practices. The Islamic Empire had conquered many ancient centers of learning, such as Alexandria in Egypt. Traders and government officials brought the writings they found to Baghdad and other great Islamic cities. Muslim scholars translated the works of Greek philosophers such as Plato, Aristotle, and Galen, and many other great scholars into Arabic. They saved many original works of Greek and Roman thinkers. These workers opened up new levels of understanding for Muslim thinkers. Centuries later, the same would happen for Europeans who rediscovered these ancient works thanks to the work of Muslim scribes. And a scribe is just a person whose job is to copy written information. So their job is to write down what was already written. Many manuscripts were translated into Arabic from their original languages. Indian writings introduced the numerals 0 through 9. Indian mathematicians also introduced the place value system. These numerals have been used since that time throughout the world. The mathematics in your textbooks today is based on the numerals and place value system. In the 800s, Muslims called these numbers Hindi numbers, after the language of northern India. However, since the translation into Arabic, they have been called Arabic numbers. So in 750 CE, the center of Islamic government moved from Damascus to what city? So they moved from Damascus to what city? So the new city it moved to was Baghdad, which is in what is now Iraq. What was the primary language of Muslims of medieval Islam? So what was their primary language? And then how did you know that was their primary language? So the works they were translating were originally in Greek and Latin, and they translated them to Arabic. So since they translated them to that language, that would have been the language that most of them would have spoke. So they spoke Arabic at the time. So what are some things that Muslim scholars contributed to what we still use now? So what were some of the things they did way back then that we still use to this day? So one of the things that they did that we still use today is they translated the works from the Greek and Roman thinkers. So they took those languages and translated them to Arabic, which we still have today. And then we also took use and borrowed their ideas of the numerals 0 through 9. All right, so let's read about learning and discovery. Muslim scholars didn't just translate ancient works. They made great advances in many fields, including philosophy, astronomy, medicine, and mathematics. One mathematician, Muhammad al-Khwarizmi, I probably said that wrong, I'm sorry, translated an entirely new form of mathematics called algebra. He built on the work of Greek mathematicians to create new ways of working with numbers, and algebra is a type of advanced mathematics. In medicine, Muslim doctors were far ahead of those in Western Europe. Muslim doctors were the first to describe measles and smallpox accurately. They were the first to discover how some diseases spread. One doctor and philosopher, Ibn Sina, was especially influential. Ibn Sina was born in 980 CE. He was a wonder child. It is said that he memorized the Quran by the time he was 10 and learned medicine and philosophy by the time he was a teenager. The Quran has 114 chapters and more than 6,000 verses. As an adult, he wrote a detailed medical encyclopedia, the Canon of Medicine, and a review of all the philosophical sciences of his day. The encyclopedia was used to teach doctors throughout the Muslim world. Later, it was translated and used in Europe for hundreds of years. Ibn Sina described various diseases and their treatments with great accuracy. He also wrote a philosophical text called The Healing. His interest didn't stop there, however. He also wrote a book on astronomy and mathematics. Eventually, the works of Ibn Sina and other Islamic scholars were shared with Europe. Muslim conquered southern Spain in the late 700s. The Spanish city of Cordoba became the center of Muslim art and learning. Cordoba boasted 3,000 mosques, 700 libraries, and several universities. Muslim scholars in Spain also translated works from Arabic and Hebrew and Latin. By 1150, European doctors were reading translation of Ibn Sina's medical encyclopedia and philosophical works. By 1200, Europeans had been introduced to the idea of algebra. So before we keep reading, who was Ibn Sina? So we talked a whole lot about him. So who was he? Kind of what did he do? What was his job? And how is he known today? So Ibn Sina was a very gifted Muslim doctor and philosopher who wrote medical encyclopedias and books on philosophy, astronomy, and mathematics. So he wrote all of these books, and then he shared them with Western Europeans later on so that way they had the information that he had. Why was the Spanish city of Cordoba important in Islamic history? So the Spanish city of Cordoba became the center of Muslim art and learning after the Muslim conquest of Spain in the 700s. All right, so we're going to keep reading about architecture and art. During this time, art and architecture also thrived. Some of the most beautiful buildings in the world were designed by Muslim architects. The Great Mosque of Samarra in Iraq is one of these buildings. Muslim artists created complex patterns and designs in bright colors. They applied these patterns to all types of surfaces: pottery, tile, glass, wood, plaster, stucco, and even brick. Islamic artists developed calligraphy, the art of elegant writing. Muslims often used calligraphy to write words from the Quran. Thus, they turned the words into works of art. So stucco is a type of rough plaster, and it's a material used to make walls, and calligraphy is just artistic handwriting. Muslim poets wrote poems of great beauty. Other Muslim writers told stories that are still read today. One of the greatest story collections in Muslim literature is 1001 Nights, also known as the Arabian Nights. When Muslim scholars, poets, and architects created great treasures, Islam continued to spread by the way of preaching, by trade, and by warfare. People in East Africa, West Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia converted to Islam. During this time, a new group of Muslims, the Seljuk Turks, took control of much of the Islamic Empire. They did not stop there. By the 1100s, the Seljuk Turks had seized more than half of the old Byzantine Empire. What were some of the characteristics of medieval Islamic art? So what were some of the things that made them stand out from other types of art at this time? So what made them stand out is the Islamic art often contained patterns. So it wasn't just a painting, it was a repeated pattern when they were making it. They also would use that to create mosaics. Some of them liked to do calligraphy, And then they often used very bright colors. They didn't use dull or pastel colors. They used very bright and vibrant colors. Who were the Seljuk Turks? So who were they and kind of what did they do? So if you can see the last paragraph, you should know that they were a group of Muslims who took control of the Islamic Empire, and they had seized more than half of the old Byzantine Empire. So that's all we have for chapter 4. We will begin chapter 5 tomorrow, talking about the Crusades. Have a great day.